Kenny Pickett, new quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Great story in Football Morning in America how he envisioned for 5 years as he walked into the pit door at the UPMC Rooney Sports Complex. He saw the Steeler door. 5 years, envisioned that he'd be heading 12 feet, literally 12 feet to the left. Amazing. And now he is. It's just great how it works out. And it's because it's not easy to make it work out that way because it's a draft. And if anybody else picking the 19 spots in front of the Steelers would have wanted Kenny Pickett, or if someone would have jumped in front of the Steelers, and it's not like it was a secret, it's not like it was a surprise. I kind of respect the fact that the Steelers don't
really hide behind it. I know.
They don't care.
Yeah.
They just don't care. Like, we're not going to try to play these games because if somebody else takes him, we'll take somebody else.
Yeah.
You know, we'll just take somebody else.
Yeah. They got belief in their team and their culture that it'll work either way. Right.
Let's hear a little bit from Kevin Colbert about what drew them to Kenny Pickett, because he said some more things. I don't know if it's going to be part of it or not, so I'll hold that until we hear directly from Colbert on specifically why they decided Pickett was their guy.
You know, ultimately, I mean, and I've said this was a better class than I think people maybe anticipate. And the way it played out, some of those guys got drafted a little later than we expected, for sure. But I think it was a really good class. And again, we went through the process and put each one of these guys through the same exact steps. Again, not trying to take Kenny for granted because he's a next door neighbor and maybe we know him better, but we did the same thing with him. But you just came away with a comfort level very early on that he's the most prepared coming out. And, you know, he's coming from a pro system, and we've watched him grow from a sophomore into that senior year where he helped them help Pitt win the Atlantic Coast Conference. So you saw that up close and personal. And in doing that, we never anticipated that he would have been available to us. But obviously, when we picked Kenny, we valued him above the others. And again, that's not to take anything away from those young men, because we really came away impressed with that group, not only physically, but their maturity level, their families. The interaction we had with that group was pretty special.
The hand size narrative for Kenny Pickett has been a thing, and rightfully so. It's an objective measurement, and his hands are smaller than other quarterbacks' hands. What would you say to put the minds at ease of fans who are thinking, oh, when it gets cold and windy and wet, he's going to be fumbling the football over and over again at Heinz Field?
Yeah, you know, honestly, I never paid attention to that. I talked about, I forget which game, I believe it was the Clemson game. You know, other personnel people were attending, and some asked me about it, and I was like, oh, okay, maybe that's something, but I never paid attention to it. And, you know, we look at the results. We watch Kenny play in our environment, albeit Pitt didn't play games as late into a year as he'll have to do here. But it is Pittsburgh. It's hot and humid in the summer, and it's cold and rainy and snowy or whatever in the winter. But we're confident that Kenny can do that. And I think the proof is just in the pudding. Can he throw the football? Absolutely. Did he have an excessive fumble rate? No, he didn't. So there's things that, again, we just judge it on how he played. And we get all the information, and we'll factor it in the discussion point. But ultimately, it comes down to how the young man plays.
And, you know, those bad weather games in Pittsburgh, if you're playing for the NFL team, they dip into the bad weather months a lot more deeply than the Pitt games. Pitt's done by Thanksgiving.
Yeah, right.
Playing there. Steelers, if you host playoff games,
yeah, you're playing a
way
regular
the calendar
season
goes
game
now,
in
you're right up to the end of January.
Right.
You're playing up until the end of January. If you're hosting playoff games,
right.
You're definitely past the start of January at Heinz Field. It's right there where the rivers come together and the wind blows. I was at a West Virginia Pitt game there, 2002, and I mean, it was sleet sideways. We had to turn our heads down and peek out the top of the hats. It was miserable. So, and the hand size, look, it's not like the stuff we were talking about with Thibodeau. It's real.
Yeah.
Hand is a certain size. It's objectively that size. And is it going to be a factor for this guy as an NFL player. And the way Colbert tells it, he just doesn't care. He looks at the guy's body of work, and it's good enough for him.
Yeah, no, it is real. It is real. Hand size is a real thing, and I've heard even like people have been like, well, Brady's hands weren't gigantic at the combine or whatever. Brady's hands are gigantic. That's the other thing. They gotta change the ways they measure it, because they measure it from the pinky to the thumb all the way over here, right? But like some of these quarterbacks, they need to measure them from the bottom to the top of their hand too. I mean, Brady's got fingers that are this long, so he might not be able to spread it that way, or his thumb might not be flexible, but he has giant hands. It is a thing. I'm just trying to say that so people out there aren't like, well, Brady's hands aren't that big. No, they're gigantic. They are. It helps control the football. Yes, but we have like a lot of tangible evidence of games in the wind and, yes, some cold, rainy days to watch it and go, he throws the ball well. Came from New Jersey. He's been wearing these gloves for a long time. And to me, that's where it's a little different. And I think, Mike, we talked about this when we were kind of evaluating the quarterbacks early on. The hand size is not as crucial to me with him because of the glove. We talk about the glove all the time. That glove grips anything. You don't even have to grip it, and it'll grip for you. It is unbelievable. I mean, so that like changes the hand size thing a little bit, because I go, well, he's been wearing this glove. He's used to it. He's not going to take it off. And that helps him control the football to a degree that I think is better than it would be if he didn't wear the glove. That's for sure.
And, I mean, look, the bottom line is, as you said, he's used to playing in the elements. This isn't Jared Goff.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
When
yes, right.
you would get him outdoors. Remember at Soldier Field?
Oh, my
just
gosh, right.
Crumbled in the elements.
Right.
Never had to deal with it before. This is something that Pickett is used to. 26 fumbles in college. Colbert said that that's not an excessive fumble rate. I was trying to look up Ben Roethlisberger's fumbles, but I'm not finding the numbers in college. I'm just curious how many times he fumbled in college, because he did pretty well for himself in a generation at Pittsburgh. Colbert also talked about that psychology as the teens were unfolding. They did make some calls about trading up, and they decided that what they were going to have to give up to trade up, it wasn't worth it. And the restraint that you have to exercise once you decide, because I said, you guys traded up to get Troy Polamalu, you traded up to get Santonio Holmes. I just assumed you would trade up. If you really like Kenny Pickett,
right?
Why are you? What are you doing? It's what Ron Rivera said about Matthew Stafford when the Washington Commanders were in this, like, we got to get a quarterback. It doesn't matter what it costs phase. Nobody remembers what the Rams gave up to get Matthew Stafford. If it works, it doesn't matter. So that's why I both respect, but I'm also a little confused by the willingness to just sit there. But Colbert said we had 20 guys we liked. We're at pick number 20. If Pickett's gone, we'll get somebody else.
Yeah.
And they were stunned that Pickett was still there. I have a feeling that if Jerry Jones owned the Steelers and put up the board, that Kenny Pickett would be a lot higher than 20 on Jerry Jones' board if he was the Steelers owner.
Well, yeah, I hear you there. I think one a little bit like speaks to kind of something you said a few minutes ago. They just don't panic. They're not worried about it. Like they don't. They obviously like the other quarterbacks a little bit, as you heard Kevin Colbert there. So even though they had Pickett as the number one guy, they weren't gonna leverage the farm on that guy if they like the other guys. I do think that could be a real possibility, no doubt about it. But you're right. It's dicey. And especially when you hear how much they really did like him and know him. That's where you go, man. That is some, great show of patience there for sure. Pickett, obviously the field, he's talented. He's got a good arm. He's a better athlete than I think people are going to realize when they see him move around and do all that. But where he won the draft process is what Kevin Colbert alluded to. He was by far the most ready, the most capable to talk the game, to talk defenses. Hey, this play, I read this. If the defense changed, then I had to read this, and he could coach it back. That was the one thing that was standard 100% through the process. No matter what team I talked to, they always said Kenny Pickett won the meeting room. That for sure. And that's where I think there was a lot of love for him in the NFL, because they feel like he can hit the ground running and take over a team.
And that's what they need.
Yeah,
that's exactly what they need. Right. This is the perfect, seamless handoff from Ben Roethlisberger to Kenny Pickett. The only thing that's missing is a year that Roethlisberger could have mentored Pickett. But I'm not. Look, we talked about this yesterday with Ryan Tannehill. Not my job to mentor. And something that Peter King mentioned in Football Morning in America talking about Pickett. 5 years Pickett was in the same building as Ben Roethlisberger and never talked to him. And I don't think it's because Kenny Pickett was big time in Big Ben. And this isn't a knock on Big Ben, because he grew and he matured and he was a much different guy. The stories about how he interacted with teammates early in his career, they're out there. It's well documented. Guys would say, I got a charity event. Can you sign this jersey? No. For a teammate.
Right.
For a teammate.
Right. No, I know.
Right?
Yes, it's a lot of stories like that.
But so I don't know how thrilled he would have been having his successor around for what was his last year. And that's fine. That's fine. All the more reason for the Steelers to hope that they can land one plane just as the other one is taken off. And it worked out.
Yeah, it worked out. It does. And worked out, and really, like, he's ready to go. And I think the Steelers, probably part of the reason they liked him is like the conversation we had with the Saints. They're going to look at it and go, wait, we're not rebuilding here. We're kind of good still. We're not giving up or throwing in the towel and going, hey, we'll see you. Hey, AFC, we'll see you back in the playoff conversation, 2 years down the road. I think they're looking at it going, man, we had some injuries on defense, and we still look at it like we're a top 10 defense. We got weapons and a running back and a tight end, and the offensive line is going to be better. So they weren't, I think that's why they really favored Pickett. They didn't want the project guy or, we think the guy could be good 2 years from now. And I think it makes sense for the state of their football team. And if it doesn't work out and he's not quite ready, okay, they got Mitch Trubisky, and he will be ready and be able to, hold the torch for a little bit before Pickett's ready to take over.
And something we said in recent years, and it was underscored when the Browns traded for Deshaun Watson, if the Steelers don't get their act together, they are going to be left in the dust in the AFC North.
Yeah.
With Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, and Deshaun Watson.
Right.
Left in the dust. So, look, we don't know what Pickett's going to be, but all due respect, they're in better shape with Kenny Pickett moving forward than any of the other options that they had on the roster, period. It's a fact. They wouldn't have drafted Kenny Pickett if they didn't think that he was ready to step right in and start from day one. And I think it would be an upset if he's not the week one starter.
I would probably agree with you there. For the guy like this, yes, Pittsburgh, I would think that, for lack of a better phrase, would really have to pee down his leg in training camp to screw this one up.
Get him ready. The attitude is going to be get him ready. Get him ready. Hey, I could see Mike Tomlin saying it. Kenny, 3 weeks until week one, get your ass ready. Are you ready? Get ready. Are you ready? I don't know. Get ready. Yeah, that's the bottom line.
Yeah, practice is going to be tough. We know how training camp is there. They don't script for success or anything like that. They let the defense hit and be crazy. So he's going to get put to the test plenty of times for them to know by the time they get done with that first preseason game, second preseason game to go, oh, wait, this is the guy. He's trending in the right way. Or they'll know, hey, okay, we got to give him a little more time. He's not quite ready yet. Let's just buy a little more time for him. They'll have that figured out by some point early on in training camp.
Here's one way to get him ready, and I'm not suggesting that Mike Tomlin will do it. Don't give him a red jersey. That'll get him ready.
That'll get him ready for sure. Here's how you get rid of the ball in the NFL.
Yeah. He's currently a slight favorite for Offensive Rookie of the Year. Drake London from USC, who went 8th overall to the Falcons, was the initial favorite. Now it's Pickett at 5-1, London 6-1, Treylon Burks 7-1, and you see the rest of the odds there.
Breece Hall and Christian Watson would be the other ones I'd really look at. That'd be the two.
I'd say Breece Hall. Running backs touch the ball more often than receivers do.
Right.
I always look toward a running back instead of a receiver, even though, yes, receivers have won it, but you got more opportunities as a running back. And look, if Pickett's going to be the week one starter, he's going to have the opportunity. Because if the Steelers are good and he's the starter wire to wire, it doesn't matter what his numbers are. If he's the starter and they make it to the playoffs, he'll be the Offensive Rookie of the Year. He will be.
Yeah.
Right? Unless one of these other guys just goes crazy statistically.
Jamar Chase wise, right? It had to be something like that. Yeah, agreed. I mean, it's what we kind of saw last year, right? Mac Jones was, hey, Mac Jones, and it was like, whoa, holy crap.
Here comes Jamar Chase.
Yeah, here comes Jamar Chase. So that's but like Breece Hall, yeah, you said it, the running back, he's 4.3 speed, he catches the ball well into the backfield, he's going to accumulate stats. And then I do look at Christian Watson from North Dakota State because I go, yeah, he's a freak of nature, and to me, the second best receiver in the draft. And he's in a spot where, like, they got to use him. They got to make him the guy. He's going to get touches. And he's the most talented guy on the roster already, period. So, sometimes that plays into it, too, of course, just the situation overall that you're in.
Speaking of receivers, part of what I talked to Colbert about dealt with the decision to use second-round pick on George Pickens. And then they got Calvin Austin right before the Ravens were going to take him. So they picked up 2 receivers, and we know how well they scout and draft receivers. And, Chris, I ran by him what we were talking about the other day, that they've just got this years of institutional knowledge where they know exactly what they're looking for, and it's their secret sauce, and they're not going to tell anybody about it, and this is how we do it. And if there's a secret sauce, they're denying that it exists. Kevin Colbert said there is nothing special in that regard. They just look at the guys and they decide which ones they think are going to be good. They do have some traits they look for, but there isn't a formula that allows them to end up getting these great receivers time and time again.
Yeah, they got an eye. I mean, there obviously is not like an exact formula, too, just because, and I believe them in that, and the fact that if there was a formula, I'd feel like they'd all have the same guys with the same look. But they've had lots of different shapes and sizes and skill sets and everything to make you think, whoa, it's not just like one brand of receiver they got an eye for. They kind of they got it. I don't know what it is or whatever, but somebody in that building knows what to look for that position, and it is special. And, yeah, here they are with 2 special starting receivers and 2 guys, as usual, that have a lot of special things about their game coming up the ranks to where they're not going to be desperate to have to sign one of these guys or anything like that if it all goes according to plan.
Yeah, and they have to backfill with James Washington and Juju leaving, but they have to be thinking ahead. And this market is going haywire, and I'm telling you, one of these 2 guys, Deontay Johnson and Chase Claypool, one of those guys is not going to be there.
Yeah.
They're not going to be able to pay both of them. Plain and simple. It happened with Mike Wallace and Antonio Brown. They were negotiating with Mike Wallace. They reached an impasse with Mike Wallace. They took the contract they'd offered to Wallace. They dangled it for Antonio Brown, and he took it. They signed Brown after 2 seasons, pre-2011, and you got grandfathered in. That's how Gronk got his deal after 2 years. If you were drafted prior to 2011, you could get a new contract after 2 seasons. It was that year, that CBA, that made the minimum 3, which that's a big difference. That's a big difference. Right now, you would have Justin Jefferson
asking
saying,
for a new deal.
F you, pay me in Minnesota.
Right.
Big difference. But Claypool's a year away. Deontay Johnson has his 3 years in. I just think that, especially because they know they can go out and find young guys, and they do it all the time. It's become the equivalent of their linebacker position in the 90s, where they would just let whoever it was go. I can't even remember the names. It was such a revolving door.
Lloyd,
he's
Kevin
eligible for free
Green,
agency.
Whatever.
Who's the guy that went to the Seahawks? The guy that went to the Seahawks that was
94. Chad Brown.
Yeah,
right.
Chad Brown.
Yeah.
Chad Brown.
Right.
Oh, superstar.
Yeah. I know.
Free agent.
Right.
See you, Chad. Thanks for everything. Boom. Go somewhere else. They just they never even flinched. They knew they would plug somebody else in there, and that guy would end up having double-digit sacks, and that's why it's stunning they paid T.J. Watt.
Yeah.
Stunning.
Yeah.
When you consider their history.
Yeah, I hear you. You know, they know how to look at those positions for sure. There's no doubt. Watt, I think, he gets to that point where you just go, damn, he's too special. Forget trying to replace him. We keep this one for sure. But, yeah, I think, again, this might be a team that, hey, we talked about the receiver thing a lot Monday, Tuesday after the draft. They might have the formula. They're good at it. Let's keep just replenishing the cupboard every 1-2 years here and keep a guy coming up the rank to where we'll never be in the spot of, we might have to pay a receiver a 5-year, $120 million contract. And I think there's going to be some teams that are looking to take that formula, to the draft for the next few years.
Steelers, I feel better about them after their draft. And that's the thing. Don't get so caught up in what happens early in the offseason. Don't get caught up in what happens post-free agency. It's not done until after the draft. And even then, it's still not completely finished. But I think Steelers fans were just, where do we fit in the AFC? Where do we fit in a division that we used to dominate? I think there's cause for some optimism. I still think the expectations are fairly low, especially because of the level of competition. But whenever they're low, that's when the Steelers tend to exceed them. I think they're going to be fine this year.
They love it. You're right. They love it. This is what Mike Tomlin loves. He loves leading men and telling them that the world doesn't like them and think they're any good. He loves it. This is like seriously, knowing him, this is like awesome to him. He thinks this is amazing. We're going to get to crap on the world and all their dumb opinions and show them the real Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm with you. You've always said that, and it is real to me, especially with this crew. And again, you said it too. There's some things on the team to like here. We overlook them because of the quarterback situation, but there's still a lot of parts here where you go, ooh, that's playoff position elite right there. They got some things there that you got to like about their roster.
Najee Harris could have a huge second year. The pass catchers are great. Pat Freiermuth was very good as a rookie, the tight end out of Penn State. Their defense is still their defense.
Yeah.
Still the Pittsburgh Steelers. And it's going to be a very fun year because we go into it really not knowing what the hell's going to happen. And it's a shame because what it means is injuries, bad calls, fluky weird things will be what determines the fate of teams more than anything else. When everyone's that packed together, that's going to be the difference maker. And hopefully it won't be bad calls. Hopefully it won't be. But that's the curse for the NFL. It's a blessing to have true parity. But the more parity you have, the more that the screw-ups by your officials influence who thrives and who falls off. All the more reason to be committed to getting all the calls right, the more your teams are packed together.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, you're right. It's the margin of error is almost a zero. And we saw that this year. I mean, we saw that in some games. Hey, we could look at Pittsburgh, Chicago from that game just last year, and that's one game right there. That sets the example. I mean, there was 2 horrible calls that helped the Pittsburgh Steelers survive that game and win it. So yes, there's that your point's real, and that's Sky Judge, all that gambling like we talk about. They got to be all over this stuff.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.